All right, Ansoo Gupta, thank you so much for joining me as I launch this first episode of a new podcast series that I'm launching called Down and Dirty. So thanks for having me. And I thought before I ask you any questions, I should do a quick introduction. And I have to say, this is super impressive that I tried to fit on a very small cheat sheet that won't do justice. But 20 years in corporate India, marketing, media professional. You've worked with some of the biggest brand names, Fox Network, History Channel, Star, Nat Geo. You're currently CEO of Pinstorm. And what I loved the most was you're a mother of two who also founded a trust called OneShoe Trust. Because you wanted to encourage people, especially women, to travel responsibly and mindfully, so kind of keeping the environment. Did I do a good job of summarizing?
Absolutely. Very good. Better than what I could have done.
And 70 countries traveled. Like that is
It's approximately 80 now. Yeah.
wow. That's absolutely fantastic. So thanks again for joining me over here. And just to give everyone just a very quick brief of what the objective of this session is, I'm going to ask you about a project that you are proud of, something that you have implemented as a founder, as a marketing professional. You pick and choose, and we're just going to get into the weeds of that, right? Like, what did this project look like? How long did it take? What are some lessons learned? If there's someone else who wants to take tips from you about what they can do, being inspired by your footprint, then what would that look like? So let's jump right into it. And Anshu, can we start? Can you tell us a little bit?
Sure. Absolutely. So, right from the time, you know how it is. I mean, right from the time you start working, there are various challenges that you overcome. It's any job, and I was in the marketing team for one of the most loved channels all across the world, if I can say, National Geographic and the History Channel. There are lots of projects that I handled as somebody in the marketing team of those channels. And then when I shifted to a digital agency, which was almost 15, 16 years back, of course the challenges are very different, because here you're catering to a clientele. You're like an external support to a client's marketing team, so it comes with its own challenges, and every single campaign that you launch, every single day is a project in itself, right? But I think the one project that I want to talk about, and which personally I did, and uh, I think it is a little exaggeration to call any project single-handedly, because there's obviously always a very big team involved. But yes, in this case, I kind of conceptualized the whole thing and put together the whole thing before I took it to the external partners to help me execute it. And that project was something very close to my heart. I always wanted to do like a B2C travel event. Right. So there are many travel events that happen in this country, which are all B2B. So they're mostly done by the travel businesses for their associates, to kind of, because the whole travel agency works through travel agents, etc., and various other people who are involved in this value chain. And the market is very big. However, it is not matured enough as some of the other countries' markets, where there are consumer-oriented travel fairs. So it was my big dream to have a consumer-oriented travel fair, because then I can use that platform to talk about the kind of travel that I wanted people to undertake, and to understand the cultural nuances of every place, how to travel more responsibly, etc., etc. Because when it's a B2B event, then those things are not the most important.
Got it. Okay, so I wanna ask you the first thing, which is, if someone wanted to learn about this travel fair that you put together, what is it called? What could they Google if they wanted to learn about it?
Yeah. So the travel fair is called OneShoe Travel Fair. It's the same name as the trust, as the company. And OneShoe is, the name also came out of an interesting conversation, but it means various things. But one of the things was that how to reduce your carbon footprint. And I didn't want to start talking about carbon footprint and all that, so I just kind of took OneShoe as the mnemonic for that. And so the event is called OneShoe Travel Fair. We did the first big event in Delhi in 2018. It was done on Earth Day in April 2018. And we wanted to, of course, come back with the other versions of it after. I wanted to make it like a biannual event, not an annual, because I thought that was too much for me to handle. But we could not do that because of the pandemic. Hopefully now we will be able to put the second edition together. Now, the thing that I want to talk about is the conceptualization of the whole event, first of all, right? So yes, it was my personal passion. I had been doing workshops to promote responsible travel, mindful travel all over the country for like 5-6 years before I finally hit down on the fact that there is no actual B2C travel event, right? And that also came with a lot of research. I kind of went to almost every single travel event that was happening in the country, and realized that there is no large travel event for a consumer to go and get inspired by travel ideas and things like that, right? At the same time, I realized that all across the world, in larger countries like UK, Singapore, there were very, very large B2C travel events happening. In fact, I went to one in Singapore, and I mean, my mind was blown to see the kind of activity that was happening at that event. Then I especially went to London to see one of the B2C travel events and what they do over there. So this was all a part of my research, right? And I was getting a lot of consumer feedback from the workshops that I was doing, because I was kind of constantly in the community of travelers. So there was a lot of feedback, and I knew that there is space for something like this. I was talking to brands.
Primary research and secondary research. You were
Yes.
reading up also, but you
Absolutely.
actually visiting fairs. You were also collecting feedback in workshops, putting all of this together,
Yeah.
and that's how
Yeah.
the idea.
And not just that, I also took the idea to brands who would be coming on board as exhibitors, as sponsors in various other capacities, right? I met up a lot of government agencies. I met up a lot of private, tourism, travel and tourism operators, and almost everyone gave me similar feedback that yes, it is needed, and yes, we don't know if the market is ready for something like this yet, because I mean, for something that has never been done, you don't know if the market is ready for it or not, right? And the way the travel industry had been working, they were pretty sure that a B2C travel event was not needed as long as there were travel agents who were selling their packages. So it took me a good, I would say, 3 to 4 years to kind of get a pulse on what the consumer wants, what the business partners want, and what kind of event could be put together, right? And what I would do is that every time I would get a new input, I would change my pitch a little bit. I already started working on a deck, right? So I was using a deck of slides to tell my idea to people. Okay. So once that idea was concretized in my mind, that this is, I mean, in my mind, I actually went through the whole process of what the event would be, what kind of speakers do I want, what kind of exhibitors do I want, etc., etc. From then on, it was slightly easier, right? But it was that whole conceptualization, and that is why I say single-handedly, because that process I did totally on my own.
And that took you 3 to 4 years from
yes,
beginning.
Yes, absolutely, because like I said, it was something that had not been done. People didn't feel the need for it as such, right? They didn't feel that, how it is with products. Sometimes people don't feel the need for it till the time they see it and say, okay, I always needed this product.
I mean, that's like the Uber and the Airbnb
story.
Yeah.
So and then of course I had a full-time job, and this has been my side project, and so it took me that much time. It doesn't necessarily need to take that long, but it did.
That's fine. Okay, so I want to jump into execution. Okay, so let's say you're like, I want to do the fair. I've done 3 to 4 years of work. I'm convinced this is an idea, no matter what people are telling me. So let's talk about when you started out. Was it just you? Did you put a small team together? How many people were helping you?
Okay, so the first thing that I did, which again I did before I put the team together, is to find my anchor partners, as in Ministry of Tourism was one of my partners.
Okay.
So that, that process I went through almost entirely on my own. Okay. Once I realized that, okay, now the ministry is ready to support me in something like this, and we will be executing it, then I started putting a team together, and we were a team of 3 people, actually.
And what was each person doing?
Yeah, so one person's role was to handle social media, because that required like a daily thing to be done. One person's role was to handle overall paperwork management, all sorts of contracts, things, and that sort of thing, contracts, finance, all that stuff. And the third person was assisting me in sales. And when I say sales, I not only mean revenue generating sales, but wherever we needed to get partners on board in whichever way, right? So this was the team of 3 people. And the event was pretty large. I mean, it was, we did it at one of the malls in Gurgaon, and we'd taken the entire ground floor of that mall. Okay, so for an event that was happening for the first time to happen at that scale was something really quite mind blowing. But that was also something that helped us get partners on board, right? You know, it's a chicken and egg situation.
Correct.
So you make it small, people kind of, you know, think about it. Okay, let somebody else do it, then we'll see it next year. Then let somebody else do it, we'll see it next year. But when they see the scale of the whole thing and the fact that the Ministry of Tourism is already involved, then, you know, it gave them a little bit of trust, right? So so the reason to do it at a massive scale was to actually build trust in the event, right? Both from the partner's point of view and the consumer point of view also. I mean, it's just because I'd been doing many small workshops, so doing a small workshop was not difficult, right? But we wanted to get a large number of people, right? Because that's what the exhibitor wants. So that's sort of
that's the Gurgaon fair that happened, the one that was massive in scale. You took up the entire floor.
Yeah, there were about 50,000 people who came over the weekend.
Amazing. Okay, so you kind of went with the big bang. You said, you know what, if I'm going to do it, if it's about building trust, if it's about building legitimacy, then I'm just going to go all out, and at least in the form of optics, make it look like this is a really big freaking deal, and you got to pay attention to it.
Exactly.
Like for the next place where the fair is going to come.
Exactly. So my point is always, and I say this to you know, everybody who's organizing events, is that the first event, which actually seems like the most difficult one to do, because, you know, everything has to be thought of afresh, and I always tell them that the reward of that will come in the second and the third event. But most people, by doing the first event, are already like, you know, I don't know if I can do a second one, right? And I always tell them that when you do the first, always keep a second one in mind and a third one in mind. And once you've done that, then everything is on autopilot, right?
So tell me about timeline. Did you stick with your timeline? Did you have a timeline? Did everything get executed?
So no, actually the timeline shifted, and they also shifted because of the partners. So one of the other partners that we had on the fair was Times of India. Right now, Times of India has a very clear-cut goal when they participate in such events, etc. And for them, it was very important. I mean, print media, you know how it is. It's extremely expensive, and for them, it is extremely important to stick to the kind of numbers that they have done for themselves. So we worked with them till the time they were confident that their numbers will work out, and then we worked on a common date with them. So I mean, for example, if I wanted to do the event in February, we had to shift it to April because, you know, some of the partners need it a little bit later. Then, of course, you have to keep the market seasonality in mind. When is the travel season? You have to keep all that in mind as well. Ideally, in a dream situation, I would have probably done the event 2 years earlier than I ended up doing. But that's okay. Like I said, firstly, we were not doing it with a commercial objective. Secondly, like I said, I was doing it on my own, and my whole thing was that first, let me get my anchor partners, right? And then we will do the event. So it was okay. I mean, there was no market beating down on us saying that you have to do this event right away. So that way I had a little flexibility. So yes, there was a little postponement of when we thought we would do the event. But it's natural. I mean, there's it happens.
You're weighing the options, right? You're like, do I want a big name like TOI?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Work around those constraints, or do I want to stick with my artificial deadline that I've set for myself?
Absolutely.
Okay. Did you have a sense of budget beforehand? How did you manage that budget?
So once the partners got on board, then everything started falling in place. So because I always knew that I wanted to do a big bang event, so I already had some sense of budgeting. Now, 2 things were in my favor here. One, because I had done marketing for many years. So I had done events like that. So I had a broad idea of what something like this would take. But if somebody has not done something, then again, you would just find out the vendors, and you would start taking quotes, and you would start putting them together and to see. But since I had, as a part of my earlier work, I had some sort of an idea of how much it will cost. Secondly, the fact that I had been doing travel workshops, and the fact that, you know, I was a part of the travel community in the country was also something that was working in my favor. I mean, I did not come as an outsider to just do an event. right? I mean, it's not like I just thought that, okay, this is a great niche and there is no event happening, so let's just do it. So I was not looking at it from just a business point of view. It was a passion point of view, and it was a community point of view, those sort of things. So the fact that you can think of it like this, that it was not just a project that was launched on paper. It was a project that had been in the making for 5 years, as even when I did not know that I'm going to be doing that event.
Yeah.
Right. So something like that. And I would again say to people who are not with deep pockets, uh, they have to compensate that with the time they spent in preparation. If you have deep pockets, I mean, you can hire 10 people who have been doing things like that, and they will do it for you, right? And if you don't have that luxury, then you have to spend time in understanding all that. So it's either time or money, right?
Yeah. And tell me about the launch plan. You said you did have someone who was doing social media marketing for you
Yes.
as well. So did you already have a solid plan in place about how you're going to go to market, or is
Yeah.
this something that evolved as the project was unfolding?
Both the things, because a lot of things as the project unfolds, you can't foresee everything. So of course that was also happening, but again, we had a very clear idea of how we want to position the event. What is it that we want to talk about the event? So we knew that these are the things that we want to talk about, and then whatever googlies came in our way as the project was happening, then we would adapt to that, right? So
And how would
for
you know
example, pardon me.
How would you know? I mean, how is it because you were an insider that you knew, okay, these are the channels I want to target. Like I want to do a post on Insta. I want to push on Instagram. I want to push on to Google Ads, whatever the final.
So that was again, I would say that was a given, because travel more and more was happening on digital, right? More and more people were getting their travel inspiration. They were doing their bookings and everything on digital. So that was a no-brainer. So as far as that is concerned, we had TOI, so we knew that we will get some print support there. Television, there was no need as such, right? And I did not consider radio or anything. I mean, as long as we could do it digitally and with Times of India, I thought in terms of media plan, we were pretty much set. And yeah, I mean, the way it was going, so I mean, there's no escape from Facebook and Insta and all that. So of course, all that was a part of the plan. And incidentally, I did not work with my own agency to do the event, simply because mine was just one small event, and the agency that I run does very, very large projects. Okay, so I actually hired somebody else. I actually took pictures from other social media companies, and then chose the best one, which was vibing with me in terms of the tone that I wanted to use, and the kind of, I mean, I basically, I was just trying to see which is the social media agency that can that has the same passion for travel as I do.
Yeah,
right? Because I knew that once the event planning work starts, I will not have time to run the social media myself. So we actually hired a social media agency.
and someone who has experience in travel. So that's an interesting tip. You're saying you're not just hiring someone who's a social media agency. You're hiring someone who has some exposure to that domain, that space in which you're operating, because then it's less headache for you. You don't need to oversee that much.
And personal passion for travel, right? So somebody who's not just treating you as another business that they are getting, right? So they are equally personally driven by something like this. So I mean, I found great partners in that. Then I started hunting around for event execution agency, which was the biggest expense that I would be holding, because I wanted cultural performances from all over the world. I want foods from all over the world, and I wanted like whole that global travel scene recreated in the mall, right? So again, I wanted somebody who's done events, who understands all the logistical issues and also the regulatory issues of serving food and cultural performances and this and that and the other. And again, I took pitches from 3-4 event management companies, and went with the one who I thought was, in fact, there was a venue change, if I remember correctly. First, we were planning to do it in Bombay, and then we decided to do it in Delhi. So my vendor choice also depended on that who's strong in which city, sort of a thing. So and then I thought that with this team of 3 people who was working with me, and with the social media agency, which is the entire media marketing that we're doing, and with the partners like the Ministry of Tourism and the Times of India and the event management agency, then I thought we were in safe hands. And from then on, my job was only to see that the things were done to my specifications. right? So then I'm equally involved with what social media is doing. I'm equally involved with what the media planning agency is doing, but then they're doing their running around, because I think from that point onwards, it would have been, I would say, next to impossible for me and my team of 3 people to launch an event at this scale.
So if somebody wanted to launch an event right now, and they're listening to or watching this, then I want to come back to budget for a second. So there's some amount, especially if you're doing this on your own, there's some amount of perhaps personal funding, but was any of this subsidized because you had names connected to the event? Or was any of this free because they would get exposure? Because
no. Nothing was free. There was either a commercial arrangement or a barter arrangement. So they would either actually pay you cash, or they would pay in some other form. So for example, I'm not saying this is what happened, but for Times of India, maybe they were giving us print space for the advertising.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was always some sort of agreement. There was nothing free for anybody. I think the free ones were the only ones, the small travel entrepreneurs who I wanted to give a showcase to. Some very, very small entrepreneurs who are running homestays, and they really don't have any budgets for any sort of marketing. But that's the kind of showcasing that I wanted to do. So those are the ones who were actually invited to showcase at the fair. So they were given space free to showcase their stuff. But apart from that, all the big names, Cox and Kings was there, Jet Airways was there, Ixigo was there, a lot of other players were there. And in every single case, it was a proper commercial arrangement.
Okay, where they got to showcase their
like in a typical event, you sell stall space, you sell other kind of branding opportunity, that sort of thing.
Understood. Okay. All right. So let's talk about evaluation. Overall, once the fair happened, I want to talk about 3 things: what worked, what didn't work, and what could have gone better. So what worked according to plan?
If you ask me, I think the biggest pluses of the event was that I got the right partners on board, both from the planning side and the execution side. So the initial ones, which kind of, again, let me have as much say as I wanted in the whole conceptualization of the event. So we didn't have to bend over backwards to sacrifice what we wanted to show to suit them, right? So that was one of the big things. The second thing was, like I said, all the execution partners were great, and that really eased out the burden for me. Thirdly, I think we did touch a nerve with the audience who were coming in, because they did realize that this thing was like totally unaddressed in the market. So everybody is selling you packages for 4 nights, 5 days, this, that, and the other, and take this cruise, take that cruise, etc., etc. But really, nobody is talking about the negative impact of travel and what it is that as travelers we can do, to save all these beautiful places that we want to go to. So that I think really worked. What also really worked was the fact that I had actually seen these kind of events happening in my recce, right? So the fact that we could replicate some of that was good.
Yeah.
So that's, in terms of didn't work, I would have liked to more brands to participate, of course. I would have liked actually not to do in a mall. Ideally, I would have liked to do it in a fairground. But it was the month of April, and I think to do something in Delhi outside in the month of April is quite, it's quite difficult. So it was a toss-up between waiting for a good season or doing it in the hall. So I mean, ideal choice would have been to do it in the winter season in an open ground. That would have been my ideal setting. So that was, I think, one thing that I would remember. And in the mall, we could not do a lot of F&B, because the mall does not allow you to do F&B because they have a food court, right? So those kind of things. But apart from that, I thought for the first event that we did, and we had this amazing gallery, like an art gallery with the most stunning travel pictures from all over the world, and things like that. So it was pretty good. I mean, I think, again, for the first event that we managed to pull together, it was quite nice.
It sounds like a huge achievement.
It was, and there were like Mexican dances happening and Punjabi dhol happening, and some other from some tribal states, and all this thanks to the event partner that I had, because they managed to get all these dancers and everything. So it was really good.
Can you name some of these partners? Like if someone else is looking for, can you recommend?
Okay, so my social media partner was Teen Bandar, which is an agency based in Bombay, and my event partner was DDB Max, their Delhi branch.
Okay. Okay. All right. So shout out to these two because they really helped you bring this to life. Okay. So is there anything that you wish could have been better?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, ideally, ideally, I would have liked more brands to come on board. If we had more time, I would have liked it to be in a better season in outdoors and more global experience created over there. Just that.
Okay, so that was okay. There was nothing else where, in terms of execution, you could have.
No,
You would
I
have
think in
changed.
terms of content, in terms of everything, I think it was pretty decent. I would say it surpassed what I had thought of when I started working. So
That is awesome. Have you done anything? Are you planning to do more? I know
well, we
COVID
always
happened.
want, when we did in 2018,
Yeah.
we thought that we'll come back in 2020 for the next edition because we wanted to take that 1 year to kind of,
Yeah.
reach out to as many people as we can in terms of selling the stalls and all that.
Yeah.
So we thought we'll take that much time. So rather than hurriedly coming back in 2019, we thought we'll come back with the next event in 2020. But unfortunately,
Then COVID happened.
the whole travel scene kind of totally went out of whack. And now let's see. I mean, things are picking up again, and I think there's a lot of ground to cover because the especially travel was very badly hit, and they
Yeah.
don't have that much spare cash lying around to, to do everything that they want to do. So so let's see. We'll be in touch with some of our partners and all that to see when can we bring it back.
Were you tracking any metrics? Like, what was your metric of success? Were you looking at the number of registrants? Were you looking at the number of sales? Like what was the call to action out of
no.
this?
So the footfalls,
That's it. Okay. That was it.
footfalls for any event, footfalls is one of the biggest yardstick, which again we were taken care of slightly because it was in a mall, right? So I mean there is a guaranteed footfall that happens. You don't have to specially call people. So that's the downside of doing it in a ground or something, right? People have to specifically come to that place.
Yes.
Right. So footfalls, in terms of footfalls, we were covered. It was pretty good. Then the traction that we were tracking was on social media, which was again not a big thing, but it's just that there's a number to track. So we were tracking that, which also I think the reach and everything was pretty much as we set out to do. So that got taken care of.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I only have rapid fire. 4 questions for you. Person who inspires you.
Loads of people, and not just famous. So difficult.
Name one if someone had to look up a biography of someone, saying, who is this person?
Steve Jobs, maybe.
Okay, done. Are you into a book or a podcast right now? Are you reading or listening to anything?
No, unfortunately not. The last book I read was about Star TV, written by Vanita, which is a book of the making of Star, which is my, ex-company. So that was the last book I read.
Okay. What's your favorite brand? Something that you like, I mean, a brand that you like.
National Geographic, hands down, because it's not just a brand. I mean, it emerges from passion again. So yeah, it's more like a philosophy more than anything else. Okay, all right. And what would you tell your 20-year-old self? Oh my God. I can tell my 20-year-old whatever, but the 20-year-olds don't listen. So so yeah, maybe I should tell them, listen more to experienced people.
That sounds like a mother talking now. Like a mother.
I am.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. That sounds like mother advice.
Yeah. No. I mean, see, there's nothing I would tell them. Seriously, I mean, because this is a question. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. This is the wisdom that I've got, that there is no point telling, because there's a path that they have to go through, and there is nothing that will stop them from doing whatever it is. Like no amount of I told you so is going to work, right? So I think I actually mean that. I was having this discussion with Kiran on Twitter the other day, and I actually mean that. I think probably the only thing that I could tell them is that carry on. I mean, you're not going to listen anyway. So. Well, Ansoo, thanks so much for giving us your gyan on this project that you ran so successfully and in such a big way.
And for everyone else who's listening, hope you enjoyed this episode, and there'll be more coming up. And until next time, onward and upward.